And now I'd like to pass on to Oona Goldsworthy, who I think is going to share a lot of these frustrations and has got some local ideas. So Oona, are you there?
I am here, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oona, can I give you your 5 minutes of fame?
Excellent. I might not need 5 minutes. Thank you so much. And just thanks to Julia, I was sort of making some notes and I was really interested in what you were saying, because I think one of the problems we've had is that we've been quite fragmented as providers. So we've maybe not been picking up on some of that best practice from across the country. So yeah, my name's Oona Goldsworthy. I'm Chief Executive at Brunel Care. I'm also on the NCF board, involved in the NCF more broadly as well. Brunel Care is based in the west of England and Somerset. We've got 5 care homes, 2 reablement centres, retirement village, dom care, all sorts of different things, sheltered housing. We're also a housing association as well, which is an interesting perspective too. I just wanted to touch on what I talked to Julia about, is that one of our dilemmas has been about the what I'm now calling rolling outbreaks. So I think there's almost a perception from the public and from public health that an outbreak is an outbreak and it happens and then it finishes and it's all fine and everything goes back to normal. Our experience in the second wave has been so much worse than in the first wave. Part of this, I think, is due to the variant. It's come into our care homes and just sort of gone straight through them. And we've been closed in most of our care homes now since end of November, December. And every time, I call it a game of stakes and ladders, every time we get to about day 22, 23, we'll get a few more cases, sometimes staff, sometimes residents. And then you go right back down to the bottom of the ladder again. I think our public health colleagues have been broadly supportive. However, that categorical, nope, 2 more cases, right back to the beginning again, has pretty much been the pattern that we've seen. And it's been very, very frustrating. And I think it's set against a climate which Julie talked about of fear. So there's a terrible fear, because I think I think it was Graham said just now, the second wave has hit us hugely, and we've had quite a number of deaths, and it's been really, really hard for relatives and for the staff having to experience that too. So we sort of felt, I think, we were dealing with something that we didn't really know what we were dealing with, and fear comes from that, doesn't it, when you're not sure what you're dealing with. What we've been talking to in Bristol with our directors of public health here and our public health colleagues is trying to be to define those rolling outbreaks a bit better, because the vaccine is our great hope, but it is much more nuanced, as we are all finding out, aren't we? So I think I came into January, many of our care homes got vaccination in January, all our staff rolling on after that, pretty much up to about 100% for residents and about between 70 and 90% for staff. So really good coverage across our homes. And yet, despite that, we're still getting the cases coming through. Last week, one of our care homes had 14 residents, of which 80% are symptomatic. So that wasn't what I was led to expect, and probably not what public health were led to expect. So it puts you back into that spiral of fear again. And one of the things that we've been talking to public health in Bristol is about that category of a rolling outbreak and how you deal with that in a different way, because I think that's our future. I don't think we're ever going to get to a position where we, particularly with community transmission, and we may have a lull over the summer, hopefully, but we're never going to get a position where we eradicate this completely, certainly with the government policy and how it's been approached. So the category of having a rolling outbreak would be much more, if you get a big outbreak, okay, you might close down initially while you just take stock and work out what's going on and carry out all that testing. But when you've quite clearly got that rolling outbreak, which you just can't get rid of, which is where we seem to be in about 4 of our care homes, then we must have a much more nuanced conversation with public health about how we deal with that. Like Julie, I've not been a fan of the pods and the screens to the extent that actually we haven't actually done it. We've carried on with visiting as far as we're able. Having said that, we have had to shut when we've had some really bad outbreaks. So it's how we have that nuanced approach, which allows us to have a much more flexible conversation with public health than the ones we've been having. As a chief executive, I wouldn't normally go along to the public health incident management team meetings, which some of the other providers will be familiar with, that have been rolled out. But I've started to go to them, and I've started to go to them because they are They are meant to be supportive, and I believe that they are intended to be supportive. I don't think anyone goes into them thinking, I don't want to be supportive in this. But the ones that we've been having in our localities have had a cast of thousands, literally. So many different people attending from so many different agencies. And I've started to attend them because I can see that they are really intimidating for some of our care home managers. The amount of questions that are fired out about the questions and risk assessments and this and that and all the other, I find intimidating. Actually, it's quite difficult. So you very, very quickly can become very defensive, and then you start to lock down, not just physically but metaphorically. You start to lock down in terms of your practice and become more scared about what you're doing. So I think there's a conversation that we should be having around public health about those rolling outbreaks and what we do about those, and using perhaps the public health that we've got, the colleagues we've got in Bristol, to help that national conversation. And I think there's another thing around how public health conversations with care homes are carried out in a way that is truly supportive and truly engaging, and is, I think, as Julie says about that balance. I really like what you said, Julie, about that balance of risks around the benefits, the balance of benefits. We've been having Zoom calls this week. I'll finish in a minute. Zoom calls this week with relatives in all of our care homes, and we had one last night, which I love them actually. It's brilliant. And we were able to say to everybody, right, full steam ahead, week after next. You know, essential family carers, you're back in doing things. But I have to say, I find those conversations quite difficult in some ways, because it feels very patronising that we are here as care homes providers telling relatives what they can and can't do. It's not a comfortable place. I don't feel it's a comfortable place to be in. And so to get to a position where we're co-designing it, and one reason I wanted to join the call this morning was, how do we co-design this with campaigning organisations like yourselves, is where I'd want to be. I think absolutely don't want to be in the us and them. Really want to be talking about how we design this together, because it's not just we started to talk about this as a crisis, didn't we? This isn't a crisis anymore. This is business as normal for quite a while. So thanks very much, Julia, for inviting me to come along. Really looking forward to working with you, and hope that we can perhaps roll out some of those ideas about better cooperation with public health colleagues.
That's absolutely terrific, Oona. Thank you so much. It's really so many ideas and things I hadn't thought about. I once sat in on an Essex County Council meeting with its care homes, and I think they forgot that I was there. I was absolutely horrified. And there was one poor care home manager, and he said, "Excuse me, has any of you had any experience of looking after people with dementia?" And there was a silence. And they sort of laughed at him behind his back. It was horrible. It was really horrible. So I think there's a very interesting theme coming out of this.